suicide rates are ridiculous. There's a lot of people that struggle finding that joy.
I am somebody, and I don't know if you know this about my story, you'd have to probably dig a little bit deeper, but in grade 11, I did attempt suicide. I overdosed on prescription painkillers. I had broken my wrist and had just gotten a prescription, 50, 60, 70 painkillers, and I was hoping that if I just swallowed it, I wouldn't have to wake up again. And that is part of why joy and resiliency is so important to me.
All right, and welcome. This is the Bold Strong Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Nadeau. Today on the show, we have Jessica Janzen. She is a lovely person, and you're really going to enjoy her. She is just a ball of energy. She is a public speaker, and she also runs a charity organization. She also is a writer of a book, which we'll get into in the show. You're going to love her. She has so much to talk about, and we're also going to connect you with her in the show notes below. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and also our show sponsor is Partner Staffing, and please follow them on LinkedIn and on Instagram and everywhere else where you can find them. Anyways, let's just jump right into this. This is Jessica Janzen. All right, Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. You got the setup. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, we want to make you feel comfortable and have you fit right in. So thank you for coming.
I love it. I'm pumped to have this conversation with you. I'm curious where we're going to land at the end of it.
Yeah, it's and like I think you said off camera, you're an open book, so we're gonna test it.
Yeah, nothing's off. I gave you a challenge. I said I've never been asked a question that I haven't answered. I said nothing's off limits.
I saw a YouTube video, and where a kid, it was probably part of a TV show, and then the kid was talking to her grandmother, and she said to the kid, "Oh, you can ask me anything. I'm an open, totally transparent." And then the kid, who was probably 7 or 8, said, "How many people have you slept with in your life?" It was like, whoa. Okay, she answered it, but yeah, it was probably a TV show, so it was
that's good.
It was all canned.
Yes.
So so it was good. So, well, welcome, and I guess you have a neat background, and I think you're here because you're an interesting person. You have an awful lot of interesting stuff going on in life, and amongst other things, you're running a charity. You have a big charity called Love for Lewiston.
Correct.
Yeah. You do speaking gigs, and you do some coaching and stuff. So, so it's interesting. So what's occupying your time and energy right now?
Well, right now it's this interview with you, and I always meet that
right answer
right in there. I always answer that question with, give me the day of the week, because my schedule and how I've designed my life is multifaceted with multiple prongs. And lots of people have been like, no, you have to choose the one thing. And as much as I've heard that, and I do believe that's true if you want to become known in a very specific niche, but I also want to empower other women and men to know that it's possible that you can do it all. Now, you can't do it all at the same dang time,
right.
But I'm a wife and a mama. I got 3 kids. I do have a charity, and we are able to make it work because of incredible community and specifically volunteers who fill in the gaps. And then, how I pay my bills is through, I'm a keynote speaker as well as a coach. And so I have one-on-one clients, and then I'm on stages, corporate companies, women's wellness retreats, you kind of name it. That's what I'm passionate about, which is weaving in a little bit of my story and then giving people the tools to succeed and find more joy and bring the joy in the face of hard things. Yeah.
Amongst the many things that I would want to talk to you about, I'm kind of curious, because I was talking to a guy couple weeks ago, and he was talking about going on speaking tours and getting speaking gigs. Like, how does that even happen? Well, how do you do that? Like, where does it come from? Does someone just out of the blue call you up and?
Yeah.
Really?
Everyone says, where do you start? And the answer to that, when I look back at my career, and I've shared this story many times before, I've always wanted to be a speaker since I was a little girl. And I was most likely voted to be a motivational speaker in high school.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Which is, it's always been me.
Why is that even on the list? That's so funny.
Yeah. I think it's like most likely to be a politician, most likely to become famous, and all of these.
Or go bald when you're 40.
Yeah, exactly. So I was most likely to be a motivational speaker, which seems very fitting. But I've always wanted to speak. I love being in front of audiences. I was always involved in theater and drama, so there's that performance side of it. But for me, I'm passionate about bringing out the best in people. And the way you start as a speaker is you start speaking. And, they're in rooms full of 5 people. Then they're in rooms full of 20. And then someone sees you. And now through the power of social media, I'm represented by 3 different bureaus here in Canada, which is amazing and great. Yeah. And they know what I speak on and how I speak and have, a network of clients. And shout out to those bureaus who, help find jobs and connect me with clients that I might not have known. But I am really fortunate, and probably a little bit of an anomaly is a lot of my interest comes from social media. So I have a somewhat decent sized platform on Instagram. I utilize a little bit of LinkedIn, could definitely do a better job, but there's only 24 hours in a day, and I have a small team. So it's in just sharing what I speak on and that I speak. And so then when people, there's a lot of decision makers on the other side of the screen on social media, and they might not be utilizing it for the role, but they might be in a role where they're like, we're planning our annual conference. We're planning our sales training. We're planning a wellness event. We are wanting to speak on mental health to our team. How do we empower them? Oh, we have a conference coming up. And that's then where they see my message and they're wanting something different. They want to talk about joy in their everyday. They're wanting to talk about possibility mindset. They want mindset training. And they want something different, not your typical cookie cutter. And I'm definitely not your typical cookie cutter speaker.
What do you find is, maybe the number one thing that people come to you to talk about? Like, what is people are always trying to fill vacuums, right? So, they call you up. If you were a comedian, of course, you'd be telling jokes, but they're coming to you because you have a message that's interesting them. What's the one that is most attractive, do you think?
Right now, it's on resiliency and mindset. And it's funny that you said that. I literally had a call with a client. They had heard me speak at a conference that a few of their team members were at, and they want to bring me in specifically for their team, their company. And I said, let me ask you this question. Are you struggling and you're navigating? We've literally just gone through survival mode with, a pandy. And now there's a new way of doing business, and our teams are burnt out, and they are trying to adjust to rapid change in the marketplace with AI, with all of these new demands. We're moving faster than ever, and we have to equip our people with a mindset and with strategies so they can overcome the obstacles, the roadblocks, the hard things that are getting fired at them at an extremely high pace. And she's like, oh my gosh, that is exactly it. So the number one question is like, how do we get our people resilient? How do we give them tools to succeed? And how do we ensure they don't burn out?
Interesting. So and I guess obviously you're right. We've gone through some bizarre big changes.
Bizarre, yes.
And it's not over yet.
No.
And as soon as we had a lady on that was talking about AI not that long ago, and I don't think we're anywhere close to knowing what that impact is going to have in the long run. I think we're all talking about it's going to do something, but we don't really know exactly.
Totally, we're figuring it out as it gets unfolded.
Yeah. Have you seen one of the interesting points that you make is during the pandemic we turned into this society that encouraged or allowed work from home environments, and I don't know. If we were psychologists, we'd have a different conversation, but I don't know how good that is for mental health.
I don't think it's great at all. They're talking about loneliness is the next pandemic that our world is facing.
Well, that's interesting.
And you can, the challenge, and I think what we're seeing and what I hear to be true and where companies are navigating this, it's like you can be more connected than ever. Like gone are the days, I remember when you're like, due to family vacation, I will not have cell reception and access to email. And now someone says that, you're like, BS. You're like, you're either on top of a mountain where there truly isn't cell reception, which I do not take those vacations. So I can't even say, hey, I'm going to have limited cell service. Like we could say that 10, 15 years ago. Yep. Now we're more connected than ever, but I think we're actually more disconnected. And Dr. Jody Carrington, who you definitely would need to have on your podcast, this is her whole message is around loneliness and our generations of being disconnected. It's like you're connected, but we're not connected in the same way when we have a conversation, when you look into someone's eyes. I get asked, can you do an in-person or a virtual? And I'm like, I can do both. And both are great. If you're speaking to 6,000 people and you can't bring them all across, they're all spread across the country, that makes logistical sense. But for me, there's nothing like being in a room. So then after you speak or afterwards, you can connect and look people in the face, hug them, touch them. Yeah. Like, that's so important. We're wired for that as humans. Yeah,
it's interesting that we were so quick to abandon some of that. It was easy. I don't know what it fulfilled in us to be able to reach out to tens of thousands of people. There was a person. I'm sure it's been said thousands of times, but there was someone who said, look, I'm not on Facebook. I have real friends. So
Sing it.
it was so good.
And that's even now, I think people feel like they have the right to speak into your life. It's something I navigate on social media. And I'm like, unless you are sitting at my table, you are not allowed to speak into my life. And I will not take your criticism or your judgment or your take on my life because you're not at the table. So they don't have a seat in the arena where you're slogging it out and doing the day-to-day. And I think that is a challenge where we can feel like we're connected or like you have a right to speak into somebody's life or be a part of something and you're up in the bleachers just observing.
Yeah, well, and I think social media encourages that behavior to a certain extent where, everyone's always, and it may not be me, but everyone is posting, please give me the feedback. Give me comments. Give me feedback on my life, what I'm doing, this movement, this thought, this statement. And so then, of course, that's what we anticipate everyone's going to do for everyone. And so suddenly we're giving commentary on everyone's life. But you're right.
Or making judgment because it's easy to judge through a screen when you really don't have the full picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a strange environment. It's funny how you're really saying it where we've never been more connected and never more disconnected.
Yeah.
And like when I think of some of my core group of friends, I don't really follow them that much on social media. I call them.
Yes. And I always say to my friends, I made a decision a long time ago that I wasn't going to post my friends' birthdays on social media. Because I have an incredible group of women and I don't want to miss someone and that's a potential. But also because I'm like, if you're truly my friend, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you. Yeah. I'm not going to give you a social media shout out because I want to sing happy birthday to you. I want to have a conversation with you. And I think we've lost the art of that connection a little bit because...
Oh, absolutely. So, like, it's interesting when you tie in this concept of joy, which you talk about too. Is have we lost our ability to be joyful, or are we?
I think a lot of people have because I get asked to speak on this topic. People are like, I don't have joy in my life anymore. Yeah. I don't know how to bring the joy. I feel like I'm lacking that, and I think we just get caught up in doing the checklist in the day-to-day. And joy doesn't just land in your lap. That's what I've learned over, the last several years, especially after the loss of our son, was like joy is a choice. Joy is a foundation. It's a way of being. It's a way of living. And you have to be intentional with it. You can't just hope that joy lands in your lap and then it'll just be there.
Do you, and what's interesting, I guess, would be, do you do 100, it's funny, you have small kids. And so there's this theory, you should throw all your kids into all the different sports and eventually they'll find the one that they enjoy. Do we apply that to ourselves as adults? And do we just say, hey, I'm going to go to the mall of life and I'm just going to go to every store until I find the store that I really enjoy going to? Or like, how do we figure out even what makes us happy? I guess maybe I haven't yet. It's not possible, but maybe I haven't yet done the thing in life that's going to give me the greatest joy. So I don't really know what it is that I'm looking for.
And I think that's great.
Making stuff up, I guess, a little bit.
You mentioned two things, and here's what I would say. Happiness and joy are different. Happiness is that immediate, like, I bought a new sweater. Oh my gosh, I love this sweater. It's so great. Joy is like runs deep. It's the foundation in which the circumstances may change, okay? So you may get the sweater, you may get the bonus, you may, all of these things. You may meet the person that is your soulmate, which I have. But we're not happy every day. Now, do I have joy? Yes. And I also believe that joy and grief can coexist. That's the beautiful thing of it. We're allowed to have both of these emotions. But joy is an intentional choice. And for me, it's now become a way of living that in the midst of the shitstorm of the things that get fired at me when I have no idea how I'm going to figure it out, I know that I have joy in the depths of my soul. And part of that is figuring out what lights you up. For me, it's dance parties, it's movement. And I think there's a lot of common themes there. But it's also like, my husband was making fun of me. He's like, you are wild and crazy. He goes, I've never met someone who loves meeting new people so much. He's like, it brings you joy to get curious and understand someone's story. For my husband, that exhausts him. He hates that. Yeah. He wants to be in his tight little bubble, stay at home. And, we recognize we have our own strengths. For me, that's joy. I'm like, I love to figure out how people do stuff. I love to know their stories. That's a joyful experience. So what works for me isn't the same as somebody else. And I do think we have to try different things. Again, I think we're in different seasons of our life. Joy when my kids were small and in diapers was just like those, quiet moments when they were napping both at the same time and right? And now it's a different season where, now joy is having dance parties and doing 9 holes of golf with my kids or going swimming and surfing and tubing with them. And so it's like investing in those moments. And I think it is trial and error. Try Stefan. Like, does this work? Is this something that lights me up? And what lights me up, I mean, I don't know if you'd have a dance party with me. That lights me up. Put on a good song. Let's rock out. For some people, it's like, oh, I hate dancing. I kind of argue on that one because I think the movement piece gets everyone joyful. I've never met someone that dances and is like, oh, this is the worst ever. Maybe my dad. But that's the trial and error piece to joy.
Interesting. Yeah, I love to dance. I don't have that gene in my body.
Yes.
Yeah, that
natural rhythm.
Have fluid movement. So, and I can't keep a beat to save my life. So
there you go. But it doesn't mean that it can't bring you joy, whether or not you're good at it or not, right?
I guess in my mind, I just hope that there's not too many people watching, unless that brings them joy.
But here's the crazy thing: the reason why I think it might not fully bring you joy is because you're so concerned what other people will think.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't give two shits. My husband and I were at a fundraising event on the weekend, and our song came on that we dance to every day with our son in the hospital. I'm talking probably 300 people in a room. They had a DJ, but it was kind of more background music, and our song is Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake. And we were on our way out, and I was like, babe, Lewiston's song's on. He's like, yeah. I set up my phone because I wanted to capture the moment, but we literally just started dancing. My coat was on. No one else was dancing. There was no dance floor. And I was able to access joy because I didn't care if other people thought it was weird or like there's no dance floor or why are you doing that? It was because it brought me joy, it brought my husband joy, and it brings him joy because he doesn't care either what other people think. Yeah. That's a powerful place to be. That's pretty great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see that sometimes. You see that sometimes, like in the gym. I see it quite a bit where people are just plugged into the music that really turns them on, and you can see them kind of disconnect from the world around them for a second, and they start just kind of like feeling
it totally.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it's tough because people need that experience. There's a lot of people that struggle and they don't have much joy in life. That's a tough spot to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So and I guess when you start to tie that in with the resiliency conversation, that's going to be a challenge because it's tough to be resilient and also feel at the same time as like I'm getting nothing out of this, and this is hardcore reality. Suicide rates are ridiculous right now. We don't talk about it much as a society because it's got some other social impacts when you do, but
it does.
The reality is that mental illness, this is it Men's Mental Awareness Month or something? So, but it's, there's a lot of people that struggle finding that joy.
And I am somebody, and I don't know if you know this about my story, you'd have to probably dig a little bit deeper, but in grade 11, I did attempt suicide. I overdosed on prescription painkillers. I had broken my wrist and had just gotten a prescription, 50, 60, 70 painkillers, and I was hoping that if I just swallowed it, I wouldn't have to wake up again. And that is part of why joy and resiliency is so important to me. And I think if someone is struggling, for me in my mental health journey, and I think sometimes it's just like the thoughts are really dark, and other times it's the wiring in your brain, and you need to seek a medical professional, and you need to be on medication. Yeah. But if you're just struggling and lacking joy, and it feels dark and heavy, the place to start to shift the story, the place to start and shift things so that you can access joy is with gratitude. Like, what are the things that are working? And there is always something, but you have to choose to see it. Our brain's looking for evidence. This is like the neuroscience of how we're wired. It's looking for evidence that this is going to be great and this is awesome and this is working. If you just keep saying, the expression, oh my gosh, this is the Mondays to Mondays. And then the Monday just gets worse and worse and worse and everything goes wrong. I literally had that day, and I remember it was only like 10:30, 10:45, and you want to talk about shit going wrong. Like, the list was, my car broke down, I slept through my alarm, the kids were late for school, we didn't pack their lunches the night before, my assistant had to cancel our call, we hadn't been, it was just, and I literally burst out laughing because I talk about this in my keynote. I'm like, this is the Mondays to Mondays. And I could have chosen to keep looking for all the things that were going wrong, but in that moment, I consciously made a decision. I'm going to be like, what can I be thankful for? what is working.
Yeah.
I just started making that list. And so I encourage people, if they're struggling, if they're like, I don't have joy in my life, start with gratitude. Simple things like, gosh, I'm grateful my cell phone's plugged in and I have access to be able to call friends. Man, I have food in my fridge. I can open up the door and there's resources there. Man, I've got these shoes and they're comfortable. Like, start going with the smallest things. Sometimes for me, it's like, girl, you got beating heart and breath in your lungs. That I'm grateful for. Someone would give anything to be in this position.
You know, what's interesting as well is that sometimes it takes someone close to us to remind us that we have lots to be happy for. And that's maybe where coaching is involved, and just having close friends who can snap you out of the shitstorm or whatever that we're stuck in.
Totally.
So.
Simon Sinek says we just need someone for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's your 8-minute friend? Who's your person that can pull you out of that? You just need 8 minutes to be able to talk about it, and just to be able to express, I think, your emotions, your concerns, your fears, your frustrations. And if you do that for 8 minutes, you can come out the other side. And so that's part of cultivating a community that will walk alongside you and is going to help you level up, not stay stuck in the mud.
Yeah, there was an interesting quote I saw just last week, or maybe it was this week, but someone said that, we'll see how this plays into the overall conversation, but someone said if you tell one person about a problem or a challenge that you're having, then you're looking for help. If you tell a whole bunch of people, you're looking for attention. Isn't that's pretty brilliant, actually.
Whoa, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
And B, that is brilliant.
Yeah, I was talking to my daughter about it today because she was, not to burn my daughter, but it's going to come across that way. But she was having a challenge, and her natural thing was just to kind of do the phone call train, where she'd call mom, then me, then sister, and then just basically repeating the same thing, hoping for maybe a different evaluation of the situation. But really, it's just, at that point, you're just looking for getting someone to pump you up or give you the thing that you're not getting, I guess. So.
Well, and I also think there's nothing wrong with having a community, but I also think you go too many places, you can have too many different opinions, and then I think it almost confuses us rather than gives us clarity on the next step we need to take. Yeah. And everyone will approach problems from a different position because they have a different perspective and they're in their own circumstances.
Yeah. I sometimes think, too, I think there's a part of our psychology that we want our friends or people that we at least perceive care about us to acknowledge our suffering somehow, and we want people around us to say, "Man, that's really bad. What's going on? You're a survivor somehow." Like we're looking for that pump up. So that's an interesting component.
I think it's the validation.
Yeah.
To validate the feelings and to feel like you've been seen.
Yeah.
Because when we don't feel seen, that's when we feel lonely. That's when we feel isolated. That's when it feels scary and hard. But if someone says, "I see you," and I don't ever expect anyone to fix my problems, but when someone's just like, "Gosh, I see you, that sucks."
Yeah.
Or like, "Hey, I see that you're hurting and that it's a really heavy, hard load. I'm just going to bring you dinner." Like that helps you go, wow, someone cares for me. Yeah. And I don't know a single person that doesn't want to be cared for.
Yeah.
That's how we're wired.
Yeah. And I guess the crazy part about our current 2024 existence is I could post a whiny victim video on Instagram and say, "Oh, look how crappy everything is." And then I'd get hundreds of people say, "Oh, no, you're a survivor." And I'd have this weird disconnected support group that really, they don't have any vested interest in me being successful or happy or joyful or anything, really. So it's a weird spot to be in. I guess as you were talking, it's an interesting thought maybe that I think I don't know if it's I think we're trying to get ourselves and maybe other people around us up to this point of zero where we then can kind of bounce off of that. So I think there's a lot of people below zero.
Yes.
Where they're struggling to find that joy. They're struggling to be resilient or whatever, to
navigate
find some
crazy
nugget. And then, in some cases, maybe it's just that one friend that says, "Look, I'm jealous of you. You probably didn't know it, but you inspire me. And here you are telling me that your life is terrible, but you're my inspiration." That's a weird spot, hey? So, yeah. I guess we just need to get to zero, and hopefully we can inspire others around us past that 0 point. So, yeah.
And that's where I'd say, what are you cultivating? What are you consuming? how are you showing up, and what we consume, who we surround ourselves with, our environment, it affects everything. So if you are below zero, like you need to take radical acceptance for where you're at. And then I'd say find people who are where you dream of being, and then go surround yourself, be around them, do what they're doing. Because what they're doing, if they're not below zero, you know, whatever you want to call that, they're doing something that's working, that's catapulting them. And that for me has been, man, I dream of being here. Okay, I got to go figure out what those people are doing. And not saying that you want to copy them and there's only one way to do it, but finding out what habits they do, finding out how they cultivate that. I don't invest time and hang out with people in the below zero because it weighs me down. You're the sum of the 5 closest people. So I'm looking at
good thought.
The movers and the shakers and the people with great habits and practicing gratitude and moving their body. And I always say, if you're lacking community, you want to know where you find community? At group fitness. Go to a group fitness class. Because those people care about their lives, and they're consistent, they're committed, and they're prioritizing themselves. And that has been where some of my best friendships have come from.
Is that right? Really?
Yes. It's my number one piece of advice I give when people are like, I feel lonely, I'm lack community. I'm like, get your body moving and get to a group fitness class.
And actually, in the group fitness classes, there's fun as well. Like you're enjoying your emotions, elevated. It's an exciting, fun time to be in. It's like sometimes, and those are probably more fun than say there is group classes where you're just all in the same room, but you're not really together. You know what I mean? And those are okay. They're not that much fun. But the fun ones are whenever it's loud and there's music and
you're moving your body, you're changing your endorphins, you're changing the state of being, and then you're feeling seen by other people. Powerful place to be.
Yeah. You do that a lot.
I used to teach group fitness, so I'm obviously very passionate about it. I was a spin instructor. I mean, I've coached cheerleading. That's why I coach other people. My role is to bring out the best in people. And if you're in a group fitness class with a great instructor, their role will not just be to lead you through a workout, but to bring out the best version of yourself so you can be your best self.
Interesting. Do you miss that? Do you miss teaching it? Or
I do. Every time I'm in a class where like the music's bumping, I'm like, gosh, I would love to teach again because I love a microphone. I love being around people. I love inspiring them to move. Realistically, I travel a lot as a keynote speaker, and my schedule is very unpredictable some days, and so it would be hard to be a reliable, hey, I teach every Tuesday, Thursday at 9:30. And so I've chosen not to do that. I don't know. There's probably still a pull of me that wants to go back. I'm teaching, and we're hosting this incredible class for my 40th birthday. I turned 40 in August. Yep. I am going to plug this because I think it's a great thing, and if you've never moved before, come out. But I'm going to lead a few of the workouts. We're doing a high fitness workout at McMahon Stadium. I have a goal to raise $40,000 for our charity for Love for Lewiston. In honor of my son who's passed. The money will go back towards the SMA community. He passed away from a rare genetic disease, and to Alberta Children's Hospital, which if you are a parent, you know the value that it is amazing to have a world-class facility in our province that we do with world-class care and world-class, equipment and facilities. We also have the #1 mental health facility in North America that was just built, the Summit.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes. And I mean, to speak on that, I'm passionate about that because as a youth, I struggled and I had a great childhood. I had loving parents. There wasn't anything drastically wrong. I just mentally was in a dark spot. And so the Summit here is a world-class facility. They went around the world, looking at what was cutting-edge technology, what some of the top facilities were doing, and we're the first of our kind here in North America. It's separate from the hospital. But because wait times were so crazy in hospitals, and it wasn't like they were cut open or bleeding or having a heart attack or, we needed a way to triage patients. And at the Summit, you can drive up as a parent, and there will be someone that meets you in the parking lot because your kid can't get out of the car. And they have an inpatient, they have an outpatient program, they have school activities, it is so well designed and thought out, and I'm really passionate about that.
Where is it physically located?
In Briar Hill.
Really?
It is a stunning
How do I not know about this? This is pretty cool.
It is. I encourage you to look it up. It's called the Jim and Marion, I never say their last name, Schneeven, Center for Resiliency, and it's called the Summit. So just Google the Summit Calgary and you'll see. And Love for Lewiston was one of the founding donors. Our name's on the wall, and we're able to be on the wall because of our generous community, which a lot of it has come from the fitness community.
Wow. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of that before. So
I think if you're connected, but maybe with your children being a little bit older,
possibly.
they serve, that population kind of, and are trying to also serve in that 18, to 20 plus range, because they almost get lost in the system, right?
Yeah,
Are they fully an adult, but they're not a child anymore?
They're out of school, so they lose that resource.
Yeah.
They're not, they're probably into some horrible starter job that's going to extract every last ounce of their soul. Wow, that's really interesting. So we'll put it into the show notes too.
Please
so
do, and if people want to make a donation, I firsthand can tell you that the funds are being utilized and poured back into the community in a way that is world class. And to have the facility that we have here in North America, my hope is that you'd have one of these in every city, because the mental health. The challenge with mental health is on the rise, and we're seeing really scary numbers. So we're fortunate to have that resource here in Calgary. Yeah,
it's what, I guess one of the tough parts of our society today is that as we move quickly, and that's an element of our current society, is that it's moving fast and it's changing and it's leaving people behind. Mm-hmm. And we see that we're in downtown Calgary, and it's there's mental illness that is not getting dealt with right now. It's tough, man. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you see downtown much like I do, but
you're right in you're in the thick of it. And I know I was listening to one of your episodes on the way here talking about not wanting to use the word housing crisis, but we're in this crazy crunch where, interest rates are insane, like the cost of living is crazy, and that then trickles down into, people feeling like there isn't a way out and there isn't hope. And so you're seeing homelessness on the rise and all of that. And I'm not downtown as much as I once was when I was working corporate, but I definitely see a sprinkle of it for sure.
Yeah. And where there's an obvious challenge gap is it's easy to throw money at problems, but that doesn't always solve problems either, right? So, just like the summit, you don't show up at the door and they give you a handful of cash and say, come back after your life's better. You have to do something. Yeah. And we're dealing a lot with, in Calgary, we're dealing with a lot of mental non-resiliency. Mm-hmm. And people are getting to a point in life where they're just saying, I give up. I can't do more. I've hit my limit. I'm going to tap out for a little while. So that's challenging. Mm-hmm. So I have kids, they haven't hit that point, but I think, maybe at a smaller level, maybe they hit that point occasionally where it's like, I don't feel like I fit in, and then they kind of hit a wall and then they come back at some point. So,
and it's our role as parents to be able to show them there's tools and resources. And my hope with my children is they can see me struggle, but they also can see me do the work to get out of the struggle.
Yeah. How do you get out of the struggle? What's the nugget that helps people get out of a struggle?
So I posted this in April, or just after. I posted it in May, but it happened to me in April. So I still struggle with mental health. And I woke up, I want to say it was April 1st. I woke up and it was suicidal ideations for myself, like, you're not worthy, your ideas are stupid, what's the point, you're not successful. Like, my brain will give me all of these terrible thoughts. And what I used to do is suffer in silence. And I know one of the very first steps is telling someone that I know I can trust this information with, that will walk alongside me. And so for me, I'm really fortunate. I have an incredible husband and partner. And so I was like, hey, babe, it's really dark. I don't want to go to bed today. It is all of the horrible things that my brain is offering me is happening. And he's like, okay. And having somebody hold you accountable so that they can A, check in, and so B, you don't feel like you're alone, like there's someone in the weeds with you, is huge. And then I didn't want to do any of this stuff, but I wrote out a list of gratitude. Okay, what am I thankful for? What do I have? And your brain's like, well, everything sucks. And you're like, no, like, what is actually true? And you have to be able to pause and ask those questions. Then I made sure I fueled my body. Part of that is like, okay, how am I fueling my body? Am I getting, enough greens? Am I giving myself enough protein? I grabbed a green juice. Then I went in and I moved my body. I signed up for a class. I didn't want to go, but I forced myself to get in there. And because I had paid for the class, I was like, I'm not going to not show. And then it's like looking at my sleep. So, everything looks dark and gloomy when you're exhausted and you haven't gotten that. And those very simple steps are like, instantly feel better. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm back, I'm joyful again. It was a solid week of fighting. But I could fight because I had someone to hold me accountable. I could fight because someone was making sure that I showed up. And I could fight because I was fueling my body properly. Our brain consumes about 30% of our energy. So being really mindful of what you're putting in, how you're feeling, all of that matters.
Yeah. How do you get past, like, when, like, not to... Okay, so now we got you back, or someone else is back, and they're kind of feeling, okay, we're back to normal. Now how do we get people excited, motivated, pumped up to take their life to the next level of potential that they have? Where do we go next? How do we get them pumped up?
Hang out with me. I mean,
karaoke is the answer.
Yeah. I think that really depends. That's a brilliant question. You know, let's say you've climbed out of, the shitstorm. Let's say you're in a spot where you're like, okay, I'm finding a flow. I'm getting there. And it's like, for me, my role is how do I constantly become a better version of myself? And that's through therapy, through coaching, through working out, through fueling my body and all of that. And I would say, get really clear on where you want to go. I don't think that there's a right or wrong place, but when you are excited about the direction in which you're moving, you tend to show up different. So I would say get excited about the direction in which you're moving your life. And lots of people will go, well, I don't know like what my purpose is, or I don't know what the next thing is. Just choose something. Just start. And if you decide in and amongst, like, I chose this direction, I'm going to go here, and then a new opportunity comes, you've had a life change, a shift, you're allowed to change your mind. But I've learned the joy is in the journey. And for me, I have these crazy wild goals that I want to hit, and I have lots I haven't hit. But I'm like just having a blast doing what I'm doing because I have a direction in which I'm going. And so there's purpose in that. There's like, oh, I know that this matters because it's going to have impact in my life. I think that's where people get confused. They just go through the motions, pay the bills, do the same thing. And in that, it's like, well, have something to look forward to. Like people say, you want joy, you want happiness, have the next trip planned. And it's not necessarily always the trip, but it's the anticipation of getting to do something. So planting those small and big seeds of like, where are we going? What's exciting? What can I look forward to?
It's part of that. I don't know if it's a cliche or a saying, but you need to live on purpose.
Yes.
So, you're right. Like, I think there's a lot of people that it's almost like they're hedging. And so they're there, but they're anticipating not being there. And so they're never really intentionally putting themselves all into something. It would be like showing up at a group fitness class and then just kind of sitting off to the side and thinking, I could participate, but I'm probably just going to leave early. Like, they're just not on purpose anymore. So that's a challenge.
And I think when you don't go all in, that's the shift. And I think when people start to go all in on the dream, on the idea, on the path, you tend to live differently rather than holding one foot in like, comfort zone. Right. So I would encourage people, if you like want to level up, don't leave a foot back in the past because it's comfortable. Like the greatest things are on the other side of the uncomfort, of the discomfort, of the change, of the challenge. But if you can go all in, that's the secret sauce right there.
I've always loved that saying, it's about some Greek battle where they say you got to burn the boats. So when you arrive at the shore, you burn the boats, there's no going back now.
Right?
So you're just going forward. So it's a neat way to go. Mm-hmm. So, it'd be neat if we could live all of our lives like that. Ooh, it'd be neat.
Well, I wish I could say, man, I'm doing that. But I very much so, because maybe I haven't burned the boat, you're keeping the boat for safety. Like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out. And so I think there's that really powerful piece of like, I'm just going to keep showing up. But often we don't because of safety. We want to feel secure. That's how our brains are wired.
Yeah. Yeah, you see it. And it's interesting, too, when you have kids because they're wiring their brains right now, right? And so I guess you have an opportunity to help do some wiring for the kids. So.
Well, and I always tell, in our family, I say, we don't say I can't, and we don't say that's not possible. It's not possible yet. And we don't say I can't because you're already telling your brain that it's not possible. And then your brain's going to look for the evidence. Oh, right, it isn't possible. So I'm like, hey, let's put this on the bucket list. Let's put this on the dream list. Hey, let's believe it's possible and we'll find a way through. Because if you believe it's possible, your brain will start accessing resources and ideas and how we can go about that.
Yeah, you're right. Like, and it's that idea of the vision boards, where people have vision boards. Well, we could be critical and say, look, you're never going to have a 200-foot yacht. But I guess it's still within the realm of possibilities. You have to act as if there's some element where you could move in that direction, but you're not moving in that direction. It's not possible today.
Yeah.
But we just need to move in that direction to start. It's not going to be possible if you do nothing.
Well, exactly. I always tell my clients, I'm like, when we set goals up for coaching, I say, okay, let's talk about where you want to be. Like, give me your big, crazy goal. And I'm like, just, if you say that you want to be a billionaire in the next 3 months, I'm not going to say it's not possible. It is possible, and we would definitely need to take action. But there's also a part of being like, okay, like, do I have the time, attention, and the resources to make that happen? But I will hold the belief for you, and I think that's when you find your people, find a great coach, and you start to do that, is find the people who believe it's possible so that when you doubt, when you don't have the tools and resources, you can borrow someone's belief until yours catches up. But if you hold the belief, you're going to keep taking action and keep making progress on the goal. Just, I think lots of people quit because it doesn't happen in the time frame that we want it to.
Yeah, we're the real business we have is involved in staffing and employment.
Right.
And it's, I don't know if it's a challenge in our world these days, but the amount of movement that goes on, people going job to job to job, that, I don't know if it's a mental illness, but it is not good.
Well, gone are the days, I really believe, of like, I remember my grandfather. I was there for 47 years, right? Like, I mean, my dad has done the same career. He's a farmer. My brother's done the same career. But this next generation, it's very rare that they'll stay more than 1 to 2 years. And I think we probably have to adjust a little bit of our expectations, also adjust how we onboard, how we train, how we retain, because there's ways that you can keep that. But like what's coming out at us is we're looking for the next fix. We're looking for the next thing. And part of that is, I think, keeping people engaged and giving them that constant ability to like, okay, let's learn and grow. But they'll look and they're like, oh, that looks fun and that looks fun. And we're in a world where you have access to almost everything through internet and social media and AI and all the crazy.
Yeah. Well, and as part of it, and I don't think I've ever mentally put this together really before, but it's almost like people are commoditizing employers. And so where it used to be that employers commoditized the employee, where it was just you come, you go, it's immaterial to the business itself. But now it seems like people treat the employer as just, well, if I'm there, I'm there. If I'm not, I'm not. It makes no difference in the bigger scheme. But if I were to give people some good business advice or employment advice, it would be, look, if you're not happy or if you're getting calls from someone else and they're saying, hey, you would be more happier over here, go talk to your employer and tell them what you feel that you bring to the table that's different than what maybe you're currently doing. What can you add as value to your employer? Employers love it. That's what they want to hear out of people. They don't want to see people just going bouncing for a couple dollars.
No, because they've invested in that. Yeah. And there's a cost of losing people, and there's also a cost of bringing people on board. And so if you can keep your people, but I think sometimes we're so caught up in the rat race of the go, go, go and the constant changing that we're probably forgetting to check in on our people. We're forgetting to show them that we care. We're forgetting to show them that there is tons of opportunity and engagement. And so part of that is like slowing down to be able to go fast. Part of that is like being aware so that you don't lose the people. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think, there's an old concept of management by walking around. And then that's where, if a manager is simply in that environment with someone, that at least is the beginning of showing engagement from the company to the person so that they feel like they're part of something. Imagine you do your work and then you go, does this even matter?
Yeah.
And if you don't feel like it matters, it's really easy to tap out. But if you're connected to a cause and a story, and I think this rings true with our charity foundation, we have volunteers that have been volunteering for 8 years.
Oh, that's terrific.
But they know that what they do has impact and it matters. And because they believe that, there's also evidence from it. They're like, oh, because I showed up at this event and I gave of my time and attention and hours and my talents, now we're able to fund the summit. Now we've been able to purchase this piece of equipment at the hospital. Now we've been able to keep these 3 kids living with SMA, into a sport, or we're able to help them access, a ramp or an accessible vehicle to keep them moving. And so when people feel tied and that the work that they do actually matters, they're going to stay committed.
Yeah. You've been doing this charity now for how long?
It'll be almost 8 years.
8 years. Wow.
Yeah, since 2017.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I want to quit every year, and I want to stop, and it's hard, and I wonder why the hell we do it. But because I've surrounded myself with incredible people, when I lack belief, a very close group of girlfriends hold the belief for me, and they let me borrow theirs. And then people who are so generous in the city, every time I'm like, there's no point, this is so stupid, it's way too hard. We get blessed with a check, with a donation, with a phone call, somebody saying, thank you for doing the work that you do. And that is the reminder and the nudge and the nudge for me to keep going.
Yeah. Do you have some big events, or what fuels it? Like, what are the big events? You said you're doing a thing at McMahon.
Yeah, so we've kind of structured it a few ways. So if you look at our calendar year, my son was born May 25th. So around May 25th this year, we were really fortunate. His birthday landed on a Saturday, so we host his birthday party. It's like a gala, massive dance party, fundraiser, silent auction, live auction, food, appies, drinks. It's phenomenal. We did it at the Ampersand property downtown.
Oh, yeah.
They have this beautiful atrium. They've redone the space. It is so rad. And if you look at pictures online, like, you'll want to be there. It's like there's confetti cannons and fireworks and a light up dance floor, and it's the best way to celebrate a really hard day for a family. And that raises some of the most money. We do an event called Ride the Roof, so 100 bikes or so on the rooftop of the Calgary Downtown Marriott, which is amazing. It's very labor intensive.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's this Sunday on June 23rd. I don't know when this will air. And then we do our golf tournament. That's a big one. And, my husband's favorite sport is golf. And that's the way that he honors our son. He said,
that's terrific.
As he walks through grief, he's like, I would love to be golfing with my son, but if not, I'll golf with all of you, and we'll be able to do some good with the funds. And so we have 27 holes, 2 teams per hole, 216 golfers, the best sponsors, and we do at Heritage Point. They're an incredible group to work with. And then we also do an event called 2.2 for Lou. So November 22nd was the day our son passed away. And it just started with a simple concept of like, man, if people could just donate, $22, or they could donate 2.2% of sales that day. And this year, I believe that event raised over $30,000 in one day.
Wow.
And
terrific.
We literally just shared it on social, and we said, if you want to contribute. And we as a family go out to Kananaskis and ride water slides. That's a choice that we've made as a family, so it's not so dreadful and scary and hard. And it's really hard to be upset when you ride a water slide with your young kids. And the city comes together in big, beautiful ways. And so that, and then utilizing social media. But those are our main events that we do. And then we're really fortunate. The Wesley Hotel here, a really beautiful boutique hotel, does a lemon light up around the holidays. And they light up a Christmas tree in honor of Lewiston and raise a bunch of money. Wow. And so we have these incredible businesses that will host fashion shows or lemon light ups and be a part of what we're doing. And every year, I'm like not totally sure how we'll get to our goal, but because we have the belief, it happens.
That's amazing. So, and I guess, I think we hear occasionally of people, it's like, oh, I'm going to start up a charity. And it's like, it's not that easy.
When people come to me for advice, which is probably monthly, I tell them not to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here's all the reasons. And I say, all I want to tell you is these are all the things I didn't know. I went into this blindly. I went into this completely naive. I had no idea about board meetings and minutes and, annual general meetings and, fiscally responsible insurance and all of these behind the scenes things that and people see our events and like, oh, this is awesome. You raise all this money. Yeah. But all the behind the scenes stuff, that's the things I hate. Thankfully, we have great people in place and an incredible board who is really supportive and very diligent. And so we're really proud of the work, but it is not for the faint of heart. Yeah. Not to say don't do it, but it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and I think there's a small segment of our world that thinks, I'm just going to start up a charity, why not? Or some, it's like, you're nuts, like, don't do it.
They are nuts, and I would say if you're nuts enough, then do it. But if you're not nuts enough, then maybe don't. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. So, but, does it, when you do those, are you focusing on something that's cathartic, I guess, where you're saying, hey, we're bringing this community together that's in a healing mode? Is there a cathartic sort of component to bringing these people together and experiencing something together?
I don't know if I've ever thought about the word cathartic, but I think that might be a great way to put it. I think for me, knowing how dark it can get when there are these hard milestones, if anyone's ever experienced loss, there's these milestones. Like, even at the beginning when my kids go back to school, I walk through usually a really hard day where I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm really sad. There's sorrow, there's anguish, because I'm like, oh, I should be putting my kid into kindergarten. Oh, I should be putting my son into grade 1. Oh, I should have been putting him into grade 2. And so there's something healing rather than focusing on all the things that you're missing out on. And for us, it's been able to turn the script. And I think it's a way for me to process my grief in a healthy way I always say, using pain as rocket fuel to change the world.
Yeah, I saw that you had said that.
Yeah, and so we use the pain. There's you can use that to suck you down into a vortex of darkness, or you can use it to be your fuel to see the change that you want in the world. And that's just the choice that we've made. And I think it is cathartic. It's healing. I think it's joyful, but then it's also filled with sadness and sorrow. And we'll be setting up for an event, and there'll be a moment in time where I just start crying, being like, I shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. I shouldn't be setting up an event because my kid died. But he did, and I can't change that.
Right. That's tough. I don't know how I guess I haven't had to deal with that.
I hope you never do.
Yeah, but, I guess it's part of life, too. We don't live forever. People around us the older we get, the more it happens. I've started going to an awful lot of funerals.
Right.
It's,
And here's the thing that brings me peace is, I have a hope in heaven, and so that's, for me, what gives me ultimate peace. But we're all dying.
Yeah.
That's not a news flash. That is just the guarantee of life. I've never known anyone to beat the clock. Yeah. And so, when they say average person gets 30,000 days, my son only got 179. That also has shifted for me in my perspective of how I live, because I am not guaranteed the 30,000. And because I'm not guaranteed, that helps me be bold and take crazy action and show up in a way that I know I won't regret.
One of the things that I always enjoy seeing or hearing is when someone says that after someone passes or a moment has, something's changed, and then I lose something.
Mm-hmm.
When someone close to me passes, I now lose that opportunity to interact with that person. So I feel bad that they're not alive, of course, but now I can't ask my dad, what was it like as a teenager back home? And you think, and that's maybe the thing that I learn all the time when someone passes is those moments that you could have had, those are going to be gone at some point. And if you don't interact with those people in some meaningful way, so that it helps me be more genuine maybe. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want it to sound kind of nutty, but I think when I talk to people, like if I say to someone, I love you, I genuinely do, and I want them to understand that, because if they died, there's a moment where I can't say that anymore.
When I hug somebody, I usually squeeze them extra tight and extra long, and looking at somebody in the eyes and having that actual moment, but I don't know if I'm going to get another.
Yeah.
And so because of that, and because unfortunately I've gotten the phone calls where they're gone. That was with my father-in-law. He passed away in a car accident in Mexico. And, we were speaking to him on Christmas Eve, and 2 days later, he's gone.
Yeah.
And I had there was no warning that I wouldn't get another moment with him. There was no warning that I wouldn't get to hug him again. There was no warning that I wouldn't get to, watch football with him again.
Yeah.
So these little moments become the big moments. And so being present, being in them, saying what you want to say, saying that I love you, it matters.
Yeah. And, the crazy as it circles back is that's sometimes where we find joy. That's where joy in life is to, knowing that you love someone and to be bold enough to acknowledge it. And then secondly, to remind someone that you actually do feel that way and that you have their back it's pretty powerful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Build something inside of us that we can cherish.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a neat spot to be in. So, yeah. Well, listen, we could probably talk for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, and I know you have 100 things to do.
Always.
So, yeah. So why don't we make a appointment at some point to do this again after you do
our crazy
the next
events.
Big event.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, it would be fun to get some video of that event.
We have some terrific video from last year that I'm more than happy to share. And I think if anyone's interested or wanting to become part of our community or, is curious, check out loveforlewiston.ca. That's our website. Yeah. We list all the events. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for good people. And then I would just encourage people, what you feel nudged on. I wrote a book on this, but the nudges on your heart, they're there for a reason. Yeah. So start acting on them, because that is how you access joy, by doing the things that you are called to do.
Yeah, we could have a whole conversation about all the times that we've been nudged and not acted on those nudges. And it's oh man, some of the biggest regrets.
Right. And for me, the acting on the nudges are my biggest blessings. Acting on bringing joy to my son's life, acting on pursuing my husband, even though he 3 times was like, I'm not into you. We're just friends. But I just had this nudge and I didn't ignore it. And now I have an incredible marriage. Still want to rip his balls off often. And Hot Ronnie is amazing. If you've met him and know him, he is so great. But following through on those nudges, even when it feels weird or difficult or doesn't make sense, that's where the joy lies.
That's hilarious, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, super. So glad to have you. I'm glad you made the trip down here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully the event's great. Look forward to seeing how it plays out. So, all right. Well, thanks for your time again.
Thanks, Craig.
All right. You bet. Bye.